Okay, we're live.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you. Madam Chair, committee members, thank you for inviting me here today to speak about this important topic. My name is Hal Elms, and my company is Pinnacle Outdoor Group. We are a leading manufacturer's rep agency in the outdoor recreation sector. What that means is we handle the wholesale sales function for 5 national brands in the outdoor industry, including everyone's favorite Darn Tough Vermont socks. My company operates in 10 northeastern states, and we're proudly based here in Middlesex, Vermont. Additionally, beyond my business experiences, which is why I'm here, I would also add that I am a forest landowner, and I own forests within one of these recognized wildlife corridors. So I have a different perspective on it in that regard. First off, thank you all for taking on this important yet complicated issue of conservation. The outdoor recreation industry in Vermont exists almost entirely within our forests and waterways. Vermont's a world-class destination whose brand image is directly related to the landscape and the natural beauty that we're so fortunate to have. This image and the vibe are in large part responsible for the $1.5 billion in annual spending on activities related to outdoor recreation in our state. Per capita, Vermont has the most residents who identify as outdoor recreation enthusiasts. We're just behind Alaska there. But beyond the economic impact, recreation also plays a significant role in creating prosperous communities, healthy and safe communities that are places of opportunity. They're places we want to live in and take care of. They're places where people want to live, where people want to visit and do business. Vermont is made up of communities such as this all across our land. So to speak on community for a second, if we look at the simple and commonly accepted definitions of community, we find a group of people living in the same place. Number 2, a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. These definitions are true and accurate, but there's another example of an expanded definition that I support and comes from a noted forester and conservationist named Aldo Leopold, who speaks of his land ethic, and I quote, "The land ethic simply enlarges the boundaries of the community to include soils, waters, plants, and animals, or collectively, the land." I appreciate the fact that H126 contains the spirit of this definition. I'm sure we can all agree that Vermont is a very desirable place to live. As such, our communities will grow, in some cases dramatically, over the decades to come. Climate migration is real, and Vermont will be on the receiving end. Private landowners will play a critical role in this process. Intergenerational land transfer trends point clearly to this. So to control the impact of growth, we need sound policies that include the comprehensive definition of community offered previously. We need to acknowledge the importance of biodiversity as it exists within our working lands. If we allow forests to become more and more fragmented, biodiversity suffers, wildlife suffers, communities will suffer. I would hope that this bill moves us in the right direction. It's been stated that Vermont needs approximately 40,000 housing units to accommodate relatively short-term growth. We need policies that make it possible to site these housing units where they make sense, in and around our downtowns, where services and public transportation can be created and maintained. This not only creates more healthy and vibrant communities, but it's also going to help protect the land that we rely upon for many societal benefits, which is what we're talking about today. Conservation is clearly a thorny issue. Reasonable people can disagree on what exactly this term even means or how it is appropriately applied. I think we've heard a little bit about that already. As an example, the current use program has been a tool in use since 1980, with what I believe can be categorized as a level of success. Others, I expect, might see it in a different light. In closing, where do we find common ground as a community? What are the next generation stewardship tools that can be used to meet the challenges and opportunities we face? I believe some of these answers lie within the working forest model that currently exists in Vermont. We have a rich history of forest products, including lumber, firewood, maple syrup. But I would also suggest that outdoor recreation be viewed as a forest product. The forest hosts our ski trails, bike trails, and walking paths. Vermont's land and waters provide a backdrop for hunting, fishing, and birding here in Vermont. These activities are part of Vermont's DNA and play a major role in defining our communities across the state. Again, I want to thank you all for the effort that the committee is putting in on 30 by 30 initiative. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share my views. I believe moving forward that bringing stakeholders together to design a plan that involves all perspectives will surely lead to success this time around. If I can be of assistance in this process, either as a landowner or as a 40-year member of the outdoor business community, I'd be happy to help in that process as it moves forward. With that, I would welcome questions or comments or discussion about anything around the outdoor recreation aspect of it or land ownership or whatever you might have.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Members have questions? Representative Smith.
Thank you. What's your take on wake boats?
That's a good question.
That's actually not in this bill.
No, it's not, but I'm just concerned. I'm wondering about, being an outdoor group.
Yeah. No, that's a fair question. I did just read an article about that. I am no expert by any means. I think that probably the size, and I'm totally talking off the cuff here. I hope you'll appreciate that. I would believe that the size of the water body would probably dictate a lot of where those are appropriate or not appropriate, I would say.
Thank you. That's good
Don't
enough.
know much about it.
That's
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Yeah.
Other members have questions?
Yes.
Representative Sibilia.
I probably should have asked our attorney this, but maybe I'll just ask everyone. What do you see is the nature of opposition to doing this?
To this.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you understand what I'm saying? What
I think I do.
It's not actually clear to me what the conflict is here.
I think the devil is in the details on so many things, and this is one of them where it's semantics. I think that I've read it. I've read the bill several times, but hearing it read out loud today, it made me realize that I think there is some confusing definitions. I think that, and forgive me, I don't remember who mentioned it, but about being able to explain it to quote regular Vermonters. I think that there's a challenge in that right now. I think there are people who are afraid of the word conservation. Because again, it's a thorny issue. We can all define it a little bit differently. I think it means different things to different people. And so I think that the challenge that we face here is creating a real clear definition of what that means. I looked back at 606 and some of the opposition to that and some of the press around that in preparation for this. And I did see a comment where somebody felt that they were going to have their land taken away from them to meet these goals. So I think that that's a real, maybe, I don't know how widespread a fear like that is, but it tells me that there are varying degrees of opposition to conservation and the government telling people maybe. So I think that's the challenge that we all face, is creating a definition of permanent, durable, conserved. Those are things that I think that people will want to know about as this moves forward. Does that answer?
I mean, it does. So I'm new to this committee. I mean, we've had this before. So just trying to really, it was me that had the comment.
Yeah.
I find a lot of times, resistance or opposition to
Sure.
new ideas is, oftentimes great information out there. So
Yes, in my experience, the only thing people dislike more than change is the status quo, I think. And so I think new ideas are, in fact, very difficult, especially when it comes to people's land. And I think it's a tricky issue. Yeah. But that word conservation is a thorny one, I think. So I think that's where bringing the stakeholders together, I think, is really important.
So, and I understand. So this is calling for a plan to get there. Is there a sense? So these tracks are identified that we're trying to keep connected, right? Is that right? Largely. I mean, so is there a sense that they're like this the state could take those, or,
I'm sure that's his wheelhouse, but.
okay, great.
And
Thank you.
And if-
I'll hold on to it. I'm just wandering around, Madam Chair, just trying to get a handle on it.
I think there's a real sense in Vermont of independence, and people don't want to be told what they can and can't do with their property. And I think that that's fair. I certainly feel that myself, but I also believe that there's room for a lot of different stakeholders. We have a rich history of working lands where we can use our lands for multiple purposes, but still achieve that biodiversity preservation that we all not only want, but we desperately need for, as the bill states, life on the planet. So I think it can be done. I think it's going to be defining some of these definitions a little bit more, maybe. And we on the recreation side, of course, feel like again, our business is built upon people being able to use our lands for recreational purposes. And so, but we also know that conservation and stewardship is critical to the long-term ability to do that. So this has to be a very long-term goal and long-term vision for sure.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
If I may? No?
You may. Yes, no, you may. You always,
I
you always
may.
wait till the end.
Pardon? What, I didn't hear that last one about waiting to the end.
Please ask your question.
Oh, you got it. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for coming. So understanding the three categories of permanently conserved areas, and then hearing that testimony that you just gave about outdoor recreation, is any part of this where homeowners or property owners want to be able to use their land for recreation or other uses? Current use, you mentioned that. Is there anything in that description? Now, we don't have the plan yet, because that's what we're charging A&R to develop.
Yep.
But is there anything in here, language-wise, that is causing you other conflict or concern with the outdoor recreation component?
Not at this time, but the devil is in the details, of course.
Sure.
So as that plan develops, I think that where I could see concern would be over how restrictive in nature it becomes around trails on lands, either public or private. But I don't anticipate that happening at all. I think that moving forward, it's going to be a very reasonable approach. I have to believe that. We already have this very rich history of outdoor recreation. We're a leader in the country around this, and it's a big part of our economy. So I feel like it's probably going to be just fine, I would say. And I certainly don't advocate for outdoor recreation to be carte blanche, just to be able to build trails on every piece of land that we have. I think that would be counter to the Vermont brand. And I think it would be counter to the goal of preserving biodiversity and that. So I think that we as an industry would like to still be a part of, we feel we have to be a part of this discussion as a business group, and but certainly in no way advocating for rampant trail building through each of those three classifications. I believe there should be land that is set aside with nothing done to it. But that's not to decide here. But yeah.
Thank you.
I hope that helps.
It did.
Great.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Right. Next up, we will invite Drew Simmons.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I usually try to actually bring some darn tough socks and give it to the person with the biggest coffee mug, but got him. So I know exactly. She would win. She would win.
I'll follow up.
Exactly. My name's Drew Simmons. I live in the Mad River Valley. I'm the founder of Pale Morning Media, which is a PR and strategic communications firm that specializes in support of outdoor recreation businesses around the country. And over the last 2 decades, honestly, I feel incredibly fortunate to have worked with many of the country's leading gear and apparel makers in a variety of categories. I've got to test product, take people out to test product, talk about testing product. We've worked in hiking and camping, fishing and hunting, skiing, mountain biking, I've also worked to support organizations such as Grassroots Outdoor Alliance, which is a national coalition of more than 100 specialty outdoor retailers, such as Outdoor Gear Exchange, one of our great businesses in Burlington. For the last 10 years or so, I've also spent an increasingly amount of time advocating for the support and enhancement of the outdoor recreation sector in Vermont, which has led me to a couple roles, which I think are sort of germane to this whole conversation. In 2017, I was named, along with Hal, to the founding steering committee of the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative, or VOREC, which is likely best known for the VOREC Community Grant Program, which is a widely popular initiative, which last year invested more than $5 million in community recreation projects. After we received 104 unique applications, which requested more than 4 times what was being given away, there is a map attached to my testimony that shows the widespread support for outdoor recreation in Vermont. In 2018, stemming from that, I joined together with a dozen outdoor recreation businesses to create the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance, VOBA, which is an organization that is in the private sector entirely that's dedicated to strengthening, expanding, attracting, and retaining outdoor recreation economy businesses in the state. I currently serve as chair of VOBA, and the organization now counts more than 100 members, ranging from global businesses like Orvis, Burton, and Darn Tough, to some essential statewide businesses such as Outdoor Gear Exchange, Onion River Sports, and Trap Family Lodge. And I'm here today to express my support for the long-term goals of 30 by 30. As I think most of you know, or all of you know, was first envisioned in the Paris Climate Agreement of 2017, which started this whole conversation. It was subsequently spotlighted in the 2021 report to the National Climate Task Force called Conserving and Restoring America the Beautiful. And it's currently before us in the Vermont bill being provided to this committee. And while I generally support the long-term goals of 30 for 30, I'm also, I think, specifically supportive of the surrounding conversations that are going to take place during this process about the long-term vision for Vermont's natural landscape, which I believe is a timely and essential conversation for both outdoor recreation as well as the Vermont economy. And just as a quick refresher, outdoor recreation in Vermont is a significant economic driver. According to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, which started counting the outdoor recreation sector 4 years ago as a portion of the GDP, Vermont consumer spending accounted for over $1.5 billion in outdoor recreation spending in 2021. That's the most recent year that was announced in November. And that made up 4.1% of Vermont's state GDP. And that's a healthy portion of state GDP. It's the third highest in the country, behind only Hawaii and Montana, which are obviously lovely outdoor places. The leading economic drivers for the outdoor recreation economy in Vermont are currently skiing, snowboarding, and other snow activities, which is worth about $215 million annually, as well as a broad group of what they call conventional activities, which is defined as traditional outdoor activities such as camping, hiking, boating, and hunting, which as a group accounted for $593 million in consumer economic impact in the year. And of course, none of this is a secret to anybody here in this room or anybody who lives in the state. We've all seen the overwhelming popularity of our natural infrastructure, particularly since the start of the pandemic, which has driven year-round traffic at trailheads, boat ramps, ski areas, and all sorts of other outdoor infrastructure. In that same time period, the state has seen record-breaking numbers of more than 1 million visitors each year at our state parks. And as we all know, not all the plates in the parking lot have been green. As out-of-state tourism, in-migration of remote workers, and record-setting real estate sales have closely followed the outdoor wave. Natural areas and outdoor recreation infrastructure have really become the same type of magnet for real estate values as coastlines have in other parts of the country, attracting people who value and desire access to these wild and natural places. Yet while access to the natural world enhances the value of real estate and draws both workers and homeowners to our state, it's even more integral to the essence of the outdoor recreation economy, as our sector and our businesses specifically rely on the durable protection of healthy lands and waters for our livelihood. And this ongoing protection of all those places that enable all these various types of recreation is often referred to as a golden goose that keeps our outdoor economy running. and we don't want to do anything to hurt that golden goose. It's important to note that these durable protections come in a huge variety of sizes and shapes. National parks, blue sky wilderness areas, protected rivers with blue ribbon fisheries, historic backpacking trails, mountain bike networks, urban parks and greenways that bring a bit of our natural world closer to our population areas. And this multifaceted approach to conservation is really part of the thing that makes me want to change my page. Technical difficulties. It's part of the pragmatic and collaborative DNA of the outdoor recreation economy in both Vermont and nationwide. So considering all this background on the outdoor recreation economy, I'd just like to express that there's a lot to like in the Vermont for conversation around 30 by 30. Number one, at its core, this process is following the science. As much as I'm a true believer in the outdoor recreation economy and its ability to deliver a wide variety of positive outcomes, public health, great jobs and careers, attraction of a vibrant workforce, support of our natural environment, all this is secondary to the issues of extinction and the impact of plummeting biodiversity on our own ability to live in this place. And at the end of the day, I don't want to be the guy explaining to my grandkids about what it used to be like to have moose and brook trout around. Number two, the 30 by 30 process really provides the stage for what I feel is a welcome strategic conversation about natural infrastructure in Vermont. As my mom used to say, and as my neighbor used to say, they're not making any more dirt. And they're right. Vermont has a naturally limited amount of space to achieve a lot of varied goals. Energy, people, food, recreation, conservation, wildlife. We have a sizable forest industry. We have a population that needs places to live. And we have a population that craves natural places for outdoor recreation as well. Number three, and once again, I have to stress that number three comes below the very important number one and number two. But I do feel that the process around 30 by 30 has a very real opportunity to provide some meaningful opportunities to increase outdoor recreation's economic impact in all parts of the state. To actually achieve this very big target number of 30%, let alone an even bigger target of 50%, it's going to require a big picture holistic strategy that has some flexibilities and embraces what they call imperfect protections, which is the term for protected areas that have conservation as possibly a primary or even secondary benefit. I think you heard from your legislative aide about the GAP system of rating pieces of public land. And what you'll see at some point is most of those very protected places are GAP 1 and 2. I think imperfect protections you'll start to see in groups 3 and 4, where there could be ways where places are managed that could achieve those conservation goals. I feel like it's like the old phrase about not letting perfect be the enemy of good. And this type of thought process would welcome conversations about the inclusion of non-traditional conservation targets in our 30 by 30 goals. These places could include recreation areas, parks and greenways, well-planned recreational trails that steer users away from sensitive species and habitat and discourage high-impact user-created illegal trails. This approach would also appeal to a huge range of stakeholders, such as hunting and fishing, or any number of outdoor recreationists who crave improved access to nature, parks, and green infrastructure. As a final thought, I'd also like to highlight the role that this long-term visioning process for conservation, outdoor recreation, and other economic interests can play as our state navigates the coming challenges of climate change. Well, the bad news is that winters are getting shorter and more unpredictable, and that our future weather pattern is tied to a $215 million chunk of the annual winter economy. The good news is there's no such thing as bad weather and bad gear. And Vermont's landscape clearly has the ability to provide a wide variety of outdoor recreation options in all seasons and all parts of the state if we give it the chance. The outdoor recreation economy has the ability to support tax revenues, healthier residents, gear and apparel companies, Main Street businesses, as well as to attract a vibrant workforce and stimulate broad-based tourism. But as I'm increasingly saying, outdoor recreation is a team sport. And for our state to bridge the gap from climate history to climate reality, we need to acknowledge the science, embrace the process, and welcome the opportunity that the coming conversations on 30 by 30 will provide. So thank you very much. I always appreciate the legislature's ability and willingness to listen to testimony from businesses and individuals. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to field anything. You already answered the wakeboarding questions covered there.
Thank you for your testimony and also for the submissions. And I guess while I'm thinking of that,
Yes, there's a couple submissions in there. One is the US Bureau of Economic Analysis snapshot of Vermont's economic impact and outdoor recreation. One is a press release on Vermont's outdoor recreation economy from VOBA, Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance. And one of them is just a map of FOREC grant requests from around the state. So you can see how close to your local district an application came from.
thank you. I just want to make sure I would like Mr. Elms to also, if you could submit your written testimony when you have a chance, send it to Kate if you're willing to do that.
I have.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Do members have questions for Mr. Simmons? Really? Thank you for your testimony. Oh, Representative Sedalia.
Sorry,
No
sorry,
worries.
Just going back to the water issue.
Water issue, yeah.
Yeah, are there, so do you have the ability to speak to any existing kind of protected water lenses that we should think about?
I mean, I would say that when you look at 30 by 30 goals as presented internationally and nationally, they always include fresh water as a significant part of that. So I'm actually sort of surprised that it might not have been included last year. I think it's part of the overall plan, I think, as is being put out there. So I think it's a welcome thing.
Maybe it's a good time for me to speak to that because I made the choice to leave it out last year because in Vermont, the waters of the state belong to all of us. And so it's a little complicated in Vermont. And so this year we put it in because, of course, they
Matches the
matter.
science, yeah.
And we've asked as part of the report to come back to us and say, what does that mean in Vermont? Because we're not quite clear on it.
Yeah.
So that is just so that shared knowledge on that topic. And then I would also say some of the water pieces around the world do include conserved areas in the ocean.
Yeah.
So that's we don't have that. So last year, for simplicity's sake, we left it out, but
Gotcha.
this year we're going to ask for the agency to give us their opinion.
I did appreciate your question earlier about where the opposition here might come from. And this isn't exactly answering that question, but it's something I've noticed over the last 25 years of working in the outdoor industry. And I'm not sure exactly when it happened. I think it happened in the late 1990s, early 2000s, but each individual user group started playing offense all the time as opposed to playing defense, and was trying to find more access, more trails, more space for whatever it is that your industry was, whether it's hunting or biking or motorized or forestry. Everybody was playing offense all the time. And when there's plenty of land and there's unlimited amounts of dirt, it's not an issue. Everybody's moving full speed ahead. But at a certain point, and I think we all knew it was coming, all these parallel lines of growth have to start coming in together. We have to start working with each other. And I do feel like having an open conversation about the long-term goal for the dirt that we do have and the water that we do have is something that I welcome. And I think most people will welcome that as a process. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next time I'll bring the socks.
Can you bring a left-handed pair?
Yes, I will.
All right, members, that completes our witnesses for the day. We will be taking this up again tomorrow. So stay tuned for more.
May I ask a question before we adjourn? There is a bill, and I don't know who is sponsoring it right now, pertaining to wake boats on lakes, not allowed on lakes under 60 acres.
Yeah, I think there is at least one wake boat bill.
Can people make amendments to that bill from the floor? They can't we?
Only if
Because 60 acres is too small a lake, I think.
You can propose that.
if it's on the
Okay.
floor, you could propose an amendment.
Okay, because I think lakes should, we were talking today about, maybe going to 250 or 300 acre lakes. Not allow wake boats on smaller lakes than that.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts on this?
Page 64.
H64?
Thank you for coming
Thank
in.
you.
Good luck.
So,
Thank
I'd
you.
just say having
Vote that's
gone through.
been hearing about, I think.
Position has, I'd like to just
all the good traffic.
understand
Yeah.
I mean, I understand. So for me, I have
Wonder
a
how
need for clarity.
lakes
You know,
are,
It's easy to.
as far as,
Explain,
are there.
but if there has been opposition
Yeah.
or, I would like
Good
to
answer.
just.
Right.
Yeah.
List of them someplace.
We will. All right, I think we will adjourn for the day, not seeing any further hands or discussion.